Here's the 5 most painful insect stings if you're living in Chicago. There's a real number attached to how much it hurts when a bug stings you, and a scientist spent years working it out by getting himself stung over and over again on purpose. Every summer, thousands of people end up in emergency rooms and urgent care clinics across this country because of a sting. And most of those stings trace back to the same handful of bugs. Illinois has all of them right through the middle of Chicago, from the alley behind your house to the porch light you flip on every night without thinking about what it might pull in. Some of these stings you'll forget by dinner time. One of them, you're going to remember exactly where you were standing when it happened. I'm Mr. V, and this is the Untamed Lens. Go ahead and drop a comment. Let me know where you're watching from, so maybe I can get a good episode on that one. Here's the 5 most painful insect stings you can actually run into around Chicago. Rank from the one you'll barely feel to the one you're not going to forget. Number 5, the sweat bees. You're on your knees in the garden bed in your own backyard on a hot afternoon, like today. You're pulling weeds, sweat's running down your arms. Something tiny lands on the wet skin below your elbow, so light you almost missed it, And then you feel a clean little pinch. When you look down, there's a sweat bee sitting right there like it's got every right to be. Illinois has sweat bees in nearly every yard and garden close to the city. Most of them barely bigger than a grain of rice. Now, they come after the salt in a person's sweat, which is exactly where the name comes from. A scientist named Justin Schmidt spent years getting stung by real insects on purpose, so the rest of us wouldn't have to guess how bad each one is. And he built a natural number scale out of it, running from 1 to 4, and sweat bees sit at the very bottom of that whole scale. It's rated at a flat 1. That's about as mild as a true sting gets. This bug doesn't even live in a colony or answer to a queen. It's a lone insect doing its own thing in your garden with no nest and no backup behind it. You'll feel it about as long as it takes to say ow, and then you're right back to pulling weeds. That one's over before you even flinch. The next one is the insect every scientist actually uses to measure all the others. That's number 4, honeybees. You're barefoot in your own backyard in July, cutting across the lawn for the water hose, not paying attention to where you're stepping because you never have to. Your heel comes down on something low in the clover, and a hot little pain just drives straight up through the sole of your foot. You're hopping on one leg before you even know why, and the culprit, spinning in the grass by your foot, is a honeybee. Here's the part most people never hear. That exact stinger is the ruler of every other insect on Schmidt's scale. It gets measured by, as I said earlier. He set the honeybee at a 2, then rated everything else as worse or milder than this one sting. Chicago keeps a lot more of these around on purpose than you'd think. The roof of Chicago's own City Hall has held working hives since 2000. O'Hare International Airport keeps more than 75 hives on its own out nearby the runways. Now, a Chicago nonprofit runs them as a job program, and one of the biggest airport bee yards anywhere in the world is there in Chicago. A honeybee gets one shot at you. It leaves a stinger behind along with part of its own body, and then it dies doing this. This is the same insect the airport keeps on purpose and the city keeps on the roof of its own government building, and it still won't think twice about dropping you mid-stride the second you forget it's down there in the clover. The one that gets to sting you only once. The next one flies on afterwards and can come right back for some more. So if this city and its own airport are out here running bee operations on purpose, you'd figure Illinois had made its peace with stinging insects by now. It hasn't, though. And the ones that actually cause most of the trouble haven't shown up on this list yet. So hit that like button before we get to them, and go ahead and subscribe if you so you can catch every one of these when they land. Because the next few change the whole picture. Number 3, ooh, the Yellowjacket. It's a warm evening in September and you're closing up a garage door and or a garbage can. About this, you're closing up a garbage can at the end of the alley behind your house. You got the trash bag in one hand, the lid in the other. And you're not thinking about anything except get back inside. Something rises up out of the can before the lid even gets there all the way. Then more come up right behind it, and the things start swarming out of that can. Those things are Yellowjackets. The first hit lands on the back of your hand before you make it 2-step. Schmidt's scale rates Yellowjackets right alongside the Honeybee. Both land on a 2 on the same 4-point scale. A lot of people expect that to feel about the same as the bee sting since they score the same on paper, but then the count just keeps climbing while a honeybee would have already been finished. That's because a honeybee gets 1 sting and it's done for good. A Yellowjacket, it gets to keep its stinger, so it could turn around and do it again and again, the very same encounter and again. And the sting itself keeps burning for up to 10 minutes afterward. They go after sugary drinks and anything that smells like meat, which is exactly why they crash every cookout and every open garbage can in the city by late summer. Their nest can hold anywhere between 1,000 to 5,000 workers by the time September rolls around, and most of those nests sit right in the ground, which is how so many of these stings happen while somebody's just mowing the lawn. A Wasp researcher at Purdue who spent his entire career getting stung by these things for a living says most people are right to be wary of them because, well, especially once the nest feels threatened. A honeybee does its damage and calls its career is over. The Yellowjacket treats the whole thing like it's got somewhere to be and plenty of time to get there. The one that shows up for the picnic, well, this next one waits for dark instead, and it's bigger than anything on this list so far. That's number 2, the European hornets. You're sitting out on the back porch after dark in August, the bulb over the door is doing its job, and moths keep bumping into the glass every few seconds. Something a lot bigger than a moth thuds into that light instead, drops into the porch rail just a few feet from your hand, and just sits there with its wings still going. It's twice the size of anything else that's showing up that light all summer. You go to wave it off the rail, and the European hornet sitting there doesn't take that so well. This one came over from, guess where? Europe, back in the 1840s. It has since spread clear through the eastern half of the country. Illinois is part of that range. It's the only true hornet living anywhere in North America, and it flies at night more than any other stinging insect on this list, which is exactly why it turns up at a porch light instead of a picnic table. A queen can run up to 1.4 inches long, so it's nearly 1.5 inches long. It's noticeably bigger than any of the insects we met so far, especially this sweat bee. It also feeds differently than the others on this list. It has stripped bark off of certain backyard trees and shrubs to get at the sap underneath it, so a nest can sit in a yard for a whole season before anybody notices they chewed patches off of the branches. Now, on Schmidt's scale, researchers place this sting just above the honeybee and the Yellowjacket. It's not a clean number 2 anymore, it's a notch past it. The real difference shows up in how long it sticks around. One man who let himself get stung on purpose just to find out reported that the burn and the throb lasted about an hour. That's 6 times longer than the longest sting we've covered so far. And Yellowjackets were kind of already a badass, but these are even worse asses. So, this same hornet also hunts other insects to survive, and honeybees are one of the things on its menu. So the one that just cost you an hour of throbbing is bad news for the one that only cost you a single sting afterwards. For as big as it is, this hornet isn't looking for a fight. Most people who get stung do it completely by accident. They brush against the nest in a tree, or they swat at one that landed too close, which is all that it takes. The others are done with you in a few minutes. This one hangs around for the rest of the evening like a headache that follows you from room to room. That one won't let you go for an hour. The last one doesn't need that long because it's got a whole extra point on the very same scale, and it's hanging off nearly every house in this state right now. That's number 1. Believe it or not, the paper wasp. you're reaching up under the eaves of your own garage to unhook a string of lice. Not looking too closely at the little gray shape stuck in the corner because it looks more like a piece of smashed paper than anything alive. Then it twitches, and about a dozen more just like it move right along with it, and the shape's now crawling over that nest or paper wasp. And the one closest to your hand isn't interested in waiting to see what you're doing up there. The northern paper wasp is one that you'll find, well, particularly every part of Illinois. And it builds its nest in exactly the kind of spot you'll reach into without thinking twice. Now, during the day, it's actually doing you a favor, hunting down caterpillars and other soft body pests to feed it to its young. That's the same insect capable of the worst documented sting on this entire list. And it's working quietly a few feet from you or from your front door. A single nest can hold up to 75 of these things by the height of summer, and every one of them can sting more than once. Same as the Yellowjackets a few steps back. Look up under your own eaves of your deck or your house or your railing, and there's a real chance a papery little nest-shaped thing is hanging upside down like an umbrella, and it's already got a bunch of them on it. On Schmidt's scale, this is where the number finally jumps to a 3. That's a full point higher than every other sting on this list. Researchers describe the pain itself as different and kind from the others. It's less like a hot jolt, more like a chemical burn that lingers after it hits. Where I come from, we call that the diarrhea sting, because it'll sting the shit out of you. It looks like the most delicate little insect on its whole list, with skinny little legs and a thin little waist instead of a hornet's bulk, and it still outscores every one of these things. Every other insect on this list still sits at a 2 on that scale, or just a notch past it. This one jumps to a full 3. It's waiting at exactly the height of your hand, right where you already reaching, and it's living in more places around this state than anything else on this list. If you like this episode, go ahead and give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss the next one of the next episode of the Untamed Limbs. I'm Mr. V, and I'll see you in the next one.